All right. Hi, new students. Welcome on into our space. All right, Grace, you're up.
Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Wednesday webinar. These webinars are designed to kind of prepare you for your time at UVA and your transition. So check back in over the summer period every week to just get new information and prepare for your time on grounds. Before we get started, just a couple general reminders. Be sure to keep up with all of the tasks in your new student portal. There's a lot of things that are important to your transition to UVA in there, so just keep up with that so you're ready to hit the ground running when you get here in the fall. Additionally, also make sure that you're checking your UVA email regularly. There's a lot of great resources in there. Our transfer newsletter is in there, and we chock that full of all kinds of amazing resources that are really going to help you in your transition. So please check that regularly and just keep up with that. We have our TTC drop-in hours every week. So mine are on Monday from 1 to 2 p.m. and Ava May's are going to be on Wednesday from 10 to 11 a.m. So please, if you have any questions, just drop in and we will do our best to get those answered. That said, the Office of Orientation and Transition Programs is also happy to answer any questions, and you can email us at orientation@virginia.edu. Additionally, as for the webinars, these are all going to be recorded and posted on YouTube. So if you ever want to check back in or review some information, you will be able to find those online. And if you have any questions at the end of the webinar, please feel free to use, I think we either have a Q&A or a chat feature this week, and we will do our best to answer those. Um, yes, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sarah Dodge, who works with Stellic, and she's going to talk to you about all the amazing resources that provides and helps with degree planning and just keeping yourself on track throughout the year.
Awesome. Thank you, Grace. And hi, everybody. Adding my voice to the chorus of welcome to the University of Virginia. We're super excited to have you and very eager to sort of support you in who you are now, but who you'll become while you're here. So today I'm going to talk about Stellic, and this is going to be your advising support platform, your source of truth for things like degree requirements, scheduling appointments with your advisors, and generally planning to make sure that you can complete all of the requirements before you graduate so that you can get that UVA degree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and show you a sample Stellic account. But I would also invite you, I'm going to drop this in the chat, to log into your own Stellic account if you haven't already. And so what will happen when you click that link is a couple of things if you're logging in for the first time. The first is UVA loves a net badge experience. This is sort of the security, login situation. So it will prompt you to log in via net badge. Make sure you do that. And then after that, if you haven't logged in before, it may ask you about your academic interests, if there are particular programs, majors, minors, things like that that you're interested in. It may prompt you to sort of enter those things. When you do that, you're not making like a lifetime commitment, and you're not necessarily declaring that major or minor. You are just sort of saying, hey, I think this is a thing that I might be interested in exploring down the road. So you can always change your mind. You can always change it in Stellic until you officially declare within your school. So with that being said, I'm going to flip over to a screen share here. And this is what Stellic will look like for you generally when you log in to see your unique platform. This view sort of lays out very cleanly the three things that you are going to do in Stellic. The first is to track your graduation requirements. The second is to plan your path. And the third is to schedule your courses. Really, what that means is build your schedule. Right now, we're still doing course registration in SIS. So as you arrive for orientation and need to do your course enrollment, as drop add happens at the beginning of the semester and you're maybe changing your schedule up a little bit, ultimately you will do that process in our SIS system, SIS. But Stellic is your place to play around, plan, and sort of do the things that you need to do to feel prepared to enroll in those classes. A couple of other things that I just want to point out to you all on this landing page. On mine, this appointments box is grayed out. On yours, this button might be blue. If you're looking for an appointment with a particular advisor, this is once the semester begins, unless you're instructed otherwise over the summer. You can come in here, click schedule an appointment, and start typing the name of your advisor. If they have availability set up in Stellic, you will be able to schedule an appointment right through the system. I want to reemphasize something that I just said, which is over the summer, this might not be the best route to your advisor. So please follow instructions from your school about who you should be in touch with regarding course evaluations, course registration, and planning. More than likely, it is a main office kind of overall email address and not a particular person. That's by design because we've got a lot of people behind the scenes that are well equipped to help you. So stay focused on responding to the emails that are in your own email and the instructions that have been provided to you. The appointments box here is for once the semester begins. All right, so we're going to jump right in. First thing we're going to do is talk about track your graduation requirements. So go ahead and click See Progress with me. Right at the top of the page, you're going to see, again, this is kind of a clone account. So this is what my information looks like on here. If your ID photo has been processed by the university, you'll see your adorable little face right there in the corner. And then you'll see a couple of things that sort of indicate some of your status at the university. Right here, you'll see a program, any programs that are officially declared for you. So right now, many of you are coming into a particular school, whether it's arts and sciences or engineering, what have you, but you haven't yet declared your major within that school. So Stellic is displaying up at the top things that we know to be official, and that will show up in this way. In this case, Sarah is officially in the College of Arts and Sciences, but is undeclared. If I did have a declared major, it would show that declared major right at the top. If I had a major that I was trying on, that I had maybe indicated interest in, there'd be another layer down here that said not declared. We'll talk about how to add that in a little bit. But for right now, this arts and sciences undeclared, engineering undeclared is likely what you're seeing unless your school has already asked you to go through the process of declaring a major. All right, we've got main campus. EY stands for entry year. That's when you're starting at the university. So most of you, I think, will see fall of 2026. Some of you might see summer of 2026 if you're planning on taking courses this summer. And then you'll see anticipated graduation. So these are all fields that are filled out by somebody on the back end at UVA. This is a good area to sort of like pulse check with yourself and with your respective schools if any of this looks inconsistent to you, if you were expecting to have a sooner or a later graduation date, for example. Those are all good conversations to have within your particular school. Scrolling down a little bit, you'll see this planned progress bar and credits and milestones. This is a progress bar that indicates to you how far along you are in completing your degree. In other words, how many credits do you already have? How many credits do you need to take in order to complete that degree? This bar is only counting for your official majors up at the top. So in other words, when you declare a new major or a new minor, this bar will actually modulate. It's smart, so it'll account for the coursework that you haven't taken within particular programs as well. So this is a good sort of general idea right now. But you'll see this evolve as you become official in your respective majors and minors programs. This box is not going to seem very interesting to you right now, and quite sadly, I have no advisors, so that's a bummer. But if you, or as you sort of progress into the semester, mostly beginning in August, you'll start to see your success team appear in this box. So in the College of Arts and Sciences, you'll see your advising dean listed there. It'll show you their name, it'll give you their email address. It's just an easy way to figure out who that person is that's assigned to you so that you can seek help from your advising dean. You're also going to see your primary academic advisor. That's your go-to person for help related to course enrollment, to building out your plan for the remainder of your time at UVA. And then you may see some other people come through in this area. You can actually add people to your success team. So if you decide that you go to the Career Center, you meet somebody who's really neat and you want to stay in touch with them, you do have the ability to add people to your success team down the road by going to your little face up in this top right-hand corner, and there's an option to add additional advisors. So again, this is just sort of your one-stop shop for who are all of the people that can support me through my UVA experience and how do I get in touch with them. Listed in this section, eventually you'll see your GPAs. As transfer students, you're not bringing in a GPA. That is totally okay. So if you see 0 now, it's not because you have 0 credits. It's just because you don't have an official GPA at the University of Virginia. You will start to see a GPA there once you've completed coursework at UVA specifically. So again, either at the end of those summer classes this summer or at the end of the fall semester in December. All right, we are continuing to scroll down here, and we're talking about tracking graduation progress. What we see in this progress section, I'm looking at a new transfer student in the college here. So for those of you who are in another school, you will see different types of requirements. But the thing that you need to know is that in order to graduate from the University of Virginia, 2 things need to be true. 1, you must declare a major. And 2, all of the boxes here need to have green check marks in them. So basically, over the course of time, you will reference your Stellic account, and this is called your degree audit, to figure out which courses have I fulfilled, which courses do I need to take. The reason why this one is a good example for transfer students is because you'll see that this student actually already has some credits that have been evaluated that are fulfilling this quantification, computation, and data analysis requirement. And so if you are somebody who has sent your transcripts to UVA, those credits have been evaluated for how they will count towards your UVA degree, they will start showing up and auto-populating here. Not everybody, as of today, July 1st, will see all of their credits coming through. That's an ongoing process within all of our schools to make sure that things are up to date and coded properly in the system. But know that your schools are working really hard to finish those things by the end of the month, as long as you have sent your transcript to your respective school, and they are working to evaluate them so that you can see all of the requirements that you have fulfilled and also the things that you have remaining. So again, green check mark means you're done. You don't have to do anything else in that category. Red means this is something that is outstanding. You still have to do something within that category. And then there are also icons for things that are either in progress, those will be yellow, or courses that you have registered or planned for. And so those are sort of indicators. Again, we're going to talk about planning in depth in a minute, but those are indicators that you have sort of accounted for those things in the future and that you are factoring those into future semesters and planning. A couple of things that I find really helpful, particularly when I'm navigating a curriculum that I'm not familiar with, is if you hover over any of these sections, you'll notice that this magnifying glass appears. I think some of these elective categories are quite broad, right? And that's intentional because UVA wants you to explore and figure out all of the different things that you might be interested in. But sometimes when it gets down to the naming conventions, it's not particularly clear which types of courses would count for that requirement. So to use an example here, cultures and societies of the world, I wonder what courses count for that. If you click on the magnifying glass, it's actually going to pull up every course that's been taught at UVA in recent memory that would fulfill that requirement. So this list of 501 courses would all fulfill the cultures and society of the world requirement. That said, we don't teach all 500 of these in the same semester, right? So this is just so that you can get a general idea. You can use these filters up top to filter for only classes that you're eligible for, right? Things that you've taken the prerequisite for. You can also filter by particular semesters and kind of learn more about these courses through these filters up top. So again, this is a good place to sort of get a general idea of what types of coursework you're looking at. It doesn't give you the particular schedule for future semesters all of the time. The other thing that I'll point out to all of you, because I think this is helpful to know, is right now the course schedule is published for fall of 2026. But if you wanted to look forward to spring of 2026, that one doesn't go live until the middle of the upcoming semester. So don't go searching for courses that are offered spring of 2027 or any future date beyond that. Right now, really focus in on what's happening in the fall of 2026 as you're sort of searching for classes for this upcoming semester. So that's really what I want to point out here. Again, you should see just all sorts of check marks coming in as your credits are evaluated, and then it will also make clear what you have remaining. The one other thing that I want to point out to all of you on this degree audit is there are some things along the bottom here that have flags next to them. Those are what Stellic calls milestones. They're not particular classes you need to take. They are thresholds that you need to meet. So in other words, you have to take 102 credits in the college if you are in the College of Arts and Sciences. If you're in the College of Arts and Sciences, you have to take 60 credits at the University of Virginia. So you can't bring in transfer credits to count for those. The engineering school has different milestones. And so, again, each audit looks slightly different depending on which school you're in, which programs you've declared. But the thing to know about milestones is you're not going to fulfill those by taking one class. More than likely, you're going to fulfill those over the course of time. So for right now, for your immediate planning, this portion of your audit, where you see all of these individual requirements, is going to be more relevant to you as you're sort of planning for the fall semester. So that is the degree audit. Where I really want to jump with all of you is to this planning process, but we're going to track back because this courses tab will help you to understand which courses UVA has already processed and which ones we might be missing on our end or we're still working on your transcript. So if you click courses, you should see up at the top, likely, transfer credits, right? These are all of the credits that you are bringing in or that UVA has processed, right? That you're bringing in from a previous institution. So if you see nothing in this courses tab right now, that means one of two things. One, more than likely, UVA has not officially approved all of the credits that have come in. They're still evaluating them and trying to figure out what the equivalencies are. Option two is that they have not yet received the transcript for the classes that you would expect to be here. So if you're ever wondering, has UVA processed my credits yet? This is a really good place to look to see if the classes that you would expect to be there are in fact coming in through the system. Again, be patient on that. This is not an invitation to like bombard your school with emails immediately after this webinar. But if you would expect some classes to be there later in the month that are not there, this is a good place to check. The other thing that I'll point out to you is in addition to transfer credits, you'll also see any test credits that you've sent to UVA as well. So this is like AP credits, IB credits, SAT scores, things like that that may also grant you either credit or progression at the university would be listed here in the same way that we've got a transfer credits tab. If you had test scores coming through, it would say test scores down below. And then, of course, as you start to take credit or classes at UVA, you'll start to see a semester by semester list of the classes that you've attempted at the university come through on this list as well. So that is the courses tab. As promised, we're going back to this planner. Honestly, I think this is something that provides students with a lot of confidence as they're moving through their program and also helps students to communicate to advisors what their plans are in terms of completing their degree. So when I clicked on that plan your path, it opened this page. A couple of things to note. Mine says clone student because I'm not a student. This is a clone account. Yours will say primary plan. In Stellic, you can build up to 3 different plans. So if you're sort of thinking about, I might want to be a psychology major, I might want to be an econ major, and then maybe there's a third thing, you can make up to 3 plans. Again, this is your primary plan. If you create a new plan, it will walk you through the process of building that out. So you can build up to three, and in fact, would encourage all of you to build two with two different majors, just so you can game out what that might look like for you. Um, then under here, you should see your official programs listed. So again, I'm pretending to be a student in the College of Arts and Sciences, so I'm Arts and Sciences undeclared. If you're in another major or school, you'll see that listed here. This is the cool part, all right? So I mentioned psychology earlier. Maybe I'm thinking about becoming a psychology major. This is how you try on a particular program. So you click that add program button and you just start typing psych. So Stellic will load up all of the programs that have that word in it. In this case, you all are focused on undergraduate degrees. So we should be looking at things that say BA or BA2MJ. Anything that's 2MJ means that it's a second major. So if you're somebody who's thinking about maybe doing a psychology major and an English second major, you would go in and select psychology first and then English 2MJ second. And that would just build your audit, which we'll talk about in a minute, in a way that kind of captures all of your interests. For right now, we're going to focus on just psychology. It's going to ask you for the audit year. This is a little bit of like administrative gobbledygook, but you're just going to want to pick the most recent one. So 24, 25 is the most recent one for psychology. We'll click add. And when we click add, Stellic's going to take a second here, but what it's going to do is it's actually going to try on the psychology major on your audit on the side. So in the same way, when we were looking at your real audit on that first page, this not only includes the literacies and the disciplines for those of you who are in the college with the check marks for the classes that you've already taken, it also then includes all of the requirements for a psychology degree. So if you were a student who had made progress in some way, shape, or form on a psychology degree, you would start to see some of those green check marks come through here as well. So now you've got all of the requirements listed for if you wanted to graduate from UVA with a psychology degree at the end of your time. And so the next step for all of you is to think about how are you going to complete all of these things over the course of your 4 or 6 semesters. So Stellic is pretty cool. You'll see all of the semesters that are upcoming listed here. Of course, fall, January, spring, summer. Should be noted that fall and spring are sort of like the tuition included cadence of the year. If you decide to take January or summer classes, there are additional fees associated with that. So that's something that you're going to want to consider as you're sort of moving through your planning here. But let's assume for right now that this student wants to take only fall and spring classes, and they're looking forward to this psychology major. So one of my early recommendations, particularly for transfer students, is to make sure you're making progress on prerequisites if they exist for your particular school. This is a great thing to talk to your dean or your academic advisor about. But when you're in Stellic, you can kind of get a general idea of what those requirements are. So maybe in my first semester, I would look to plan for this Psych 2005 course. You can add this to your plan in a couple of different ways. The first is to click on this box, click add to fall, and then add a course. And again, you just start typing Psych 2005. When you click it, that will add it to your plan. When you refresh the page, let's see if this works, it will actually check that off on your audit. So when this loads, we're going back into the psych prerequisites. And now you'll see this has a yellow check mark because it is something that you have planned. Another thing that you might consider adding to your plan is one of your disciplines categories here. Maybe it's historical perspectives. In addition to being able to just type in a course over here, you can drag and drop a whole category. Maybe you're not sure which class you want to take yet, but you know you want to fulfill this requirement. So you use that as a placeholder. And then same thing again, when you refresh the page, you will see that now this historical perspectives category has a check mark. So as you're sort of building towards the coursework that you think you might want to do in a semester, it's important to remember that this is a very sort of fluid and flexible process. So even if you build what you think will be your ideal semester for fall of 2026, there are some realities of courses filling up or wait lists or just different limitations that come up. So remember that this is a plan. It's not set in stone. We definitely anticipate things needing to switch around a little bit, which is why Stellic makes this always editable to you, right? If I decided instead of next semester instead of this semester historical perspectives I wanted to take in the spring, you can simply drag and drop the placeholders around so that you can move things and keep them in your plan. The other thing that I think is kind of neat here is that we've taught Stellic about a lot of the rules at UVA. And so it will start to count the number of credits that you've planned in a particular semester. So this will go from 3 to 6. And if you continue to drag and drop, it will continue to add those things together. It'll throw up a red flag for you when you've hit the credit limit, right? UVA has rules about how many credits you're allowed to take each semester. So you'll see a red message that says credit override. If you try to put a particular course in your schedule that's not being taught in a given semester, you're going to see a red message that says unlikely to be taught or unlikely to be offered. If you try to plan for a class where you haven't taken the prerequisite yet, it will throw up a red message that says you haven't taken the prerequisites yet. So hopefully, as you're messing around with your plan, you will start to see some of these like logisticy pieces come into play that will help you to plan well so that when ultimately you go to talk to your advisor, you've worked out some of the kinks in the original plan through the rules that Stellic knows. One of the things that you could do, this is not a mandate, but it's a suggestion, is that theoretically, if you wanted to see what all of your semesters remaining looked like, you could actually go through and drag and drop all of these categories on this side into your planner here. One of the reasons why you might do that is to assure yourself that you can finish in your allotted time. When you do that, I've seen a lot of students discover that perhaps they might encounter a minor that they would also be able to finish. I also just think, for me at least, it gives peace of mind to know that yes, I can do this thing, and it helps me understand what a potential path to success is. So again, you can go in and add specific drags and drops here. If you have a category like fundamentals of psychology where there are a lot of different options, remember that all of this is sort of like nested into itself. So you'll see there's that 2005, there's a second course that I need to take. So you can either drag a particular category, broad. I would do that for future semesters where possible, or you can drag a specific class. Oh, prerequisite not satisfied. So there's one of those error messages. So that's actually very helpful there. So anyway, you can drag and drop. The other thing that is super helpful to both you and your advisor is you both have the ability to add notes to a particular class. So if you're not really sure about research methods, maybe you haven't taken research methods class quite yet and you want to get some wisdom about that, you could write a note to yourself here as like a reminder to talk about that in your advising appointment with your advisor. They can also see those notes, so you can sort of pull them up together and work through that. Great. So then same thing here. I'm going to actually pretend to build a semester real quick because I want to show you another sort of neat thing. We're just going to pretend philosophy seems good, and then we're going to look at an NWAR class. That's English writing for those of you. It took me a long time to figure out what people were saying when they were talking about NWAR. So maybe there's an NWAR 1510. Okay, so let's pretend this is a pretty basic schedule, but let's pretend this is a schedule that you are interested in pursuing in fall of 2026. Stellic has another neat tool that will help you to prepare for course registration. If you click this little calendar, it'll bring up this page. So as we've been planning, we haven't done anything with regard to like selecting sections or times of classes, right? Usually, you have to pick what time you want to go to class and see when they're offered. And a truly hair-pulling activity that I've seen students toil through is how do I fit all of these classes together in a way that makes sense for the schedule that I want? Stellic actually launched this really neat generate schedule tool whereby you can choose all of the topics of the classes that you want to pick, and then Stellic will do the work of puzzling for you. So you kind of come over here, and I like this category is a lot to work through and is pretty standard, but this category down here, these nice to haves, are actually really delightful. So you might say, I care about my class density. That means I want my classes evenly distributed over the course of the week, or maybe I want to pack them into only a few days. Stellic will use all of the sort of information and preferences that you give it here to build the best possible schedule. So if I click Generate Schedule, Stellic is going to show me all possible options for the three courses that I've selected so far. So when you find one, maybe I just love this one. Look at all those packed into the middle of the day. So when you select a schedule, you'll notice that it then gives you the course number or the number that you'll use for registration for the section of the class. So that's super helpful. You can rerun this generate schedule thing as often as you'd like. Again, this is sort of a playground for your planning. None of this sticks. This is not enrollment yet. But if you are looking for different iterations of what a schedule might look like, you can certainly sort of move through all of these options and figure out your best possible or your strongest preference for a course. Again, not a guarantee that this is how this is going to work out, but certainly a tool that you can use to find iterative options for yourself as you're working through that registration. So that is the scheduler. Again, you can find that if you go back to Plan Your Path. In the upcoming semester, you'll always see a calendar icon there. So that is the planner. Again, your advisor can see this. You can see this. You can build out your whole remainder of your time at UVA. That is not a mandate, but it is a fun activity for those of you who like to know that you can get things done. You can make up to 3 plans. We encourage you to do that. And also, if you're somebody who's like, maybe it's psychology and then I want to add a minor, I forgot to mention earlier that not only can you add those majors, you can also search for, let's say, a minor in data science. You'll notice that those all say minor or MN next to them. And same thing, if you add that to your plan, it will show all of the requirements for that minor. Stellic will also help you understand where things double dip. So if you plan for a class that's also going to count for something else, Stellic will automatically do that for you, which I think is, again, a helpful tool, particularly for transfers who are wanting to take advantage of taking as much as they can. Planning helps you to sort of identify where those double dips might be going forward. So that's sort of really the nuts and bolts of what you need for the summer. I do want to point out to all of you, there are a couple of other features over here that you just might want to poke around in. The first is the course search. This is another way that you can search for classes that are going to be offered at UVA. There is a filter right now that's specifically for fall of 2026. We're teaching 2,750 courses next fall. Again, you might have seen when I first arrived on the page. Overall, we've accounted for 7,635 courses that have been taught at UVA in recent memory. So again, this is where these filters become really important to help you search for particular things. One pitch that I'll give you for this course search in Stellic versus using SIS for course search or using something like Who's List for course search is that this is a true keyword search. So if you're excited about film and you want to take a class about film at UVA, in those other 2 systems, there's not an easy way to just search by film because you have to search within certain departments. In Stellic, if you wanted to check out all the film classes, you come in here, and unfortunately this fall, there are no film classes being, oh wait, yeah, no film classes being taught, but perhaps medicine might be another option. Oops, medicine. There are 142 classes that have at least Medi in them. So you can come in and do some of that keyword search, learn more about what's being offered at the university. And again, this will show you where you can't really take the class because you haven't taken the prerequisite versus where the prerequisite is cleared. And that means that you are good to go in terms of taking that class next fall. So that's the course search. I'm actually going to jump to program search next. This lists all of the different degrees that are offered at the University of Virginia. If you wanted to go in and eyeball the requirements of a particular program, you could come in, here's anthropology, and this is what your requirements would look like, or the things that you've taken would look like within an anthropology degree at UVA. So again, this is not officially adding anything to your plan. This is sort of like a preview to a particular major. The last thing that I'll share with all of you, that is definitely something that you're going to want to talk to your major advisor about or someone in your school, is there are pathways available. There is not a pathway for every type of program, but particularly for those of you who might be interested in like a medical school pathway, there are 6 pre-health pathways that are available to you that sort of give you a plan of if I went to medical school and took a bridge year, it shows you the type of coursework that you would need to do along the way to make sure that you would be a competitive med school applicant. And you all should have this apply to your plan button that would allow you to officially add all of these classes to your plan instead of having to drag and drop them. Again, this is not required or an expectation to have a pathway, but they are sort of suggestions from the different schools and programs that manage them about how students usually approach that coursework. And after you apply it, definitely go talk to your advisor about whether that makes sense for your unique circumstance. So just one last thing to know is if you ever find that you need help with Stellic specifically, or have questions about any of the functionality that I just showed you, I know you're receiving a ton of information from UVA right now. And so I want to offer myself as potential support for you in terms of regrouping around Stellic. Again, we talked about this appointments button down here. If you find that you have questions that you want answers to, you can you can definitely schedule an appointment with me. My name's Sarah Dodge. You can see it down there. Sarah with an H, Dodge like the car. I do Stellic support. I am not an academic advisor, so I'm going to point you back to your academic advisors for that type of thing. But as you are encountering things along the way, would love to be somebody who's your supporter and cheerleader and making sure you're getting what you need out of this system. So feel free to reach out. You do not have to wait until the semester starts to find me, and would love to sort of work through all of this with you. I'm seeing that there are a bunch of chats coming through. Betty, were there any questions that I
Yes.
need to address?
I can help you out since you've
All
got your
right.
screen shared.
Thank you.
If we could answer, what should we do if some of our transfer credits that are assigned with certain gen ed attributes like HP or CMP through the
Mhm.
credit analyzer are unmatched to their Stellic requirements? What's it mean, if they don't apply?
Good question. So if they are not matching to the requirements that you would expect based on the transfer credit analyzer, I would circle back with your school. They are the people that are applying sort of the transfer credit to the course that is then sticking to Stellic. So that's a question for your school. I know all of your schools are really interested in maximizing the credits that you've taken prior to UVA. So that may be part of the conversation, but definitely email sort of the general credit email address that your school has provided.
Yes, we have a question about the placement requirement and language requirement.
Mm.
For the student who's in the comm school, I'm going to recommend you reach back out to the comm school. Just to reiterate, Sarah oversees like the Stellic platform, which is an advising support platform, but she's not in the nuances and specifics of what goes into each particular major or degree plan with your schools. And each of the schools have their own way of advising or specific recommendations that they might have. So I do recommend you go back to them, but maybe Sarah, if you could talk broadly about placement tests requirements and language requirements and how those would appear in Stellic.
Yeah, good question. So if you have taken a placement exam, then the score, once it's processed, so not immediately, but once it's processed, will show up in that courses tab that I showed you earlier. So let me just navigate back so you can all see it. In this courses tab, you will see all of your tests appear, including those placement tests. The language that Stellic has in actually many of our audits about taking language up to the 2000 level basically means that either you need to place that way through a placement test, and I think at the end of most of our placement tests, it tells you what your score is and how you place. But it means that, or you need to take up to, usually it's the 2020 level, which means 4 semesters of a particular credit. So my advice to you is twofold. One, definitely take the placement exam. And if you have transfer credit for a particular language coming from your previous institution, make sure that your school is aware of that so that they can help to place you accordingly, because both of those things are factors when determining which language you or which course level you should start in as you sort of progress through your language.
Great. Moises, we talked a little bit about double majors, but feel free if you have additional questions, to drop those in the chat. Bo, yes, this recording, or the webinar recording will be posted online in the next couple days. All of our previous webinars and their recordings have already been posted on the same Wednesday webinars chat. All of this information is also in your transfer newsletter. Um, Talking a little bit about override codes from professors. Is that common at UVA? I think, again, this is something I recommend going back to your specific advisors or schools. Feel free to attend drop-in hours with our TTCs to get a little bit of what the peer perspective is when they're trying to get into a course, and looking at those more specifically.
So Betty, I'd like to
YouTube,
jump
yep,
in there actually.
yep, go for it.
So there are some courses, particularly in art or computer science, some of our other departments, excuse me if I've missed something critical here, but there are some courses where you'll see something in SIS called instructor permission, whereby you have to ask the professor for permission to enroll in the classes. Don't do that right now, because what happens is the professor will approve it right now, even though you all aren't coming till orientation till later in the month. So if you make that request right now, even if it's approved, your request is going to expire before you register for courses. So my best wisdom on that is that it's fine at your orientation time to put in that request, but actually the best time to think about your instructor permission coursework is during open enrollment in August, where you have sort of free reign to change your schedule and evolve and accept the professor's permission to join those classes. So definitely on July 1, do not put in the request to have instructor permission. And if you are somebody who's taken coursework that you believe would allow you to take future classes that are a little bit more advanced or at a higher number, have prerequisites, things like that, that's definitely a question for first your advisor or your school, and then the department specifically.
Yes. And so, because just to reiterate, a question is I might have been placed in courses I'm either not eligible for, I haven't met the prereqs, and or can we just move around classes at a times and dates and things like that? Yes, at your orientation time, you will have your enrollment block. There will be advisors in those spaces to help you. There will be peer leaders in those spaces as well to kind of show you the ropes of SIS as well to help with that and answer any questions. I highly recommend waiting until either your orientation date and or open enrollment, as Sarah mentioned. Um, can you talk a little bit about writing requirements, Sarah? And
Yeah.
how those might show up in Stellic?
So I see this question, Bo, about your Stellic, or sorry, your first writing requirement not showing up in Stellic. I think, there's nothing wrong with advocating for yourself, right? So my vote is always to ask the question if you think that something should show up in a way that it is not currently showing up. I think UVA has some pretty stringent rules around how they accept writing requirements writ large, and many, if not most, of our transfer students do need to take that writing requirement while they're here on grounds. So I would always tell you to advocate for yourself, ask a good question, and I do know for that first writing requirement, many of our students do need to take that physically here in Charlottesville.
Can you kind of go over a little bit in Stellic of how to add specific class times when you add courses to potential semesters?
Yeah, so I think the way that I find easiest is to use that generate schedule feature. Let me navigate back to that for you. When you go into this schedule view, say we've kind of selected this is our ideal scenario, but we're wondering when this history room, that's probably not a great example because there's only one offering of that. All right, NWAR 1510. There are like a bajillion different sections of NWAR 1510. So actually, there are 12 for next semester, but here we are. So we've selected this one, but you can also come in here and see all of the other sections and times. As you hover over them, it will show you how they would look if you switched into that section on your plan. So you can hover. The number here tells us how many seats were available in that class at midnight, so like 12 hours ago. Um, it's not real-time refresh, that is all in SIS, but this gives you a general idea of how many seats are available at midnight the day before. So you can kind of come in and see all of these different times, and then if you're like, yep, this seminar 55 is for me, you can actually then go in, click that plus sign, and swap it into your plan. So the key thing that you're going to want to know as you're building this in Stellic is what this number is, or potentially what this class number is. And those are the things that are going to help you find it to put in your shopping cart in SIS.
More about the writing requirement. Julian, I recommend just again following up with your advisor on what they might be requiring from you specifically to talk about that requirement.
Mhm.
Uh,
Emmanuel,
any
I
other
love your
questions?
question about if you were pre-enrolled for a course you've already gotten credit for. I think take advantage of your credit that you already have. To Betty's point earlier, you can drop that class and enroll in something different when you're here for orientation or during open enrollment. I think that will happen for students as credits are being evaluated, right? The initial goal of pre-registration was to get you into classes that we know you would likely need to take at UVA. And now we're in a phase where we're sort of refining based on all of the credits that you've taken and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I don't know that I would recommend repeating a class. If you feel like you have more questions about that, that's a great one for your advisor or your school. But I think in general, if you were pre-enrolled for a class where you already have credit, take the next one up, take something different.
Any other questions? Feel free to keep dropping them in. So you guys are thinking of questions. I will say a lot of times our transfers talk a little bit about how they feel that their timeline as a transfer student at UVA feels really short, and they're not able to fit in all of the things they want to do, all of the courses they want to take, study abroad, all those types of pieces. One of the reasons we are encouraging students to take advantage of this platform over the summer is to really start looking at those long-term visions and dreams you have during your time here at UVA so you can have more informed conversations with your academic advisors and really get to planning if you're thinking of a second major or a minor, all of those pieces here. This gives you a lot of exploratory time. Those drop-in hours with our transfer transition coaches that they shared, they can help you with either SIS or Stellic. They are not helping with any of the specific course requirements, but if you're just looking to like add courses to your shopping cart and could use a little more guidance on those. I know sometimes with all the platforms right now as a new student, it could just be a little overwhelming. That is what our two student staff members and leaders have gone through and have mastered every semester. That's why they're here now to really help you with the onboarding as you come into UVA. Any other questions? Yes, so the portal to sign up for orientation closed, but if you need to be added, you can email orientation@virginia.edu. You do need to do some other steps. So if you're having trouble with your university, excuse me, your picture for your mobile ID, and or any other challenges like IT wise, you might either have to contact the mobile ID office or IT. So those in the contacts for those are in each specific task item in your new student portal. But reach out to orientation@virginia.edu for an orientation session as soon as possible. Yeah. And that goes for any other questions. If you're not sure of where to go, please just reach out to the orientation office or DM the UVA Instagram, the UVA Transfers Instagram, UVA Transfers. As a junior, can you declare a major right away or do you need to wait? Um, Major declarations for third years will be encouraged. So you'll have an opportunity during the start of the fall semester to connect with faculty in the specific major departments, and then you can reach out to your advisor to learn the processes on how to declare a major. Is there anything Stellic wise, Sarah, that goes along with declaring a major?
Not specifically. I think the one thing to know is that prerequisites are going to be a thing that you might need to factor in. So there's a world where you can declare right away, and there's also a world where you might need to defer your major declaration. And so one thing that you can do in Stellic to sort of prepare for that conversation is to go ahead and look at that major that you think you want to declare and see where things are falling with the prerequisites that you have taken and the prerequisites that you haven't taken yet.
So if a student's coming into EHD and it shows up as declared on Stellic, but credit wise, they're actually in the second semester of their second year, does that take away the declared status? Do you know specifically for
Yeah, so
EHD?
Stellic itself does not do anything that your school doesn't tell it to do. So basically what you see in Stellic is what your school has told us about you so far. That doesn't mean that humans are perfect, right? So sometimes schools do make mistakes as they're doing data entry. And so if you have a question about a particular thing that you're seeing in Stellic, maybe being different than what you would expect, go back to your school because ultimately they are the ones that can tweak that to make it look right if there is an error.
Yeah.
Advisors typically come through SIS in August. Some might come in earlier, but I think general practice is that August is when academic advisors are assigned.
Mhm. Yeah, so you've probably already received outreach from an advisor. It's not necessarily your particular advisor for the academic year. Since they might see this in Stellic at a later point, Sarah, can you explain the folks that might show up on their advising team or success team in Stellic, and that there might be multiple?
Yeah, so I mentioned that earlier. The folks that will show up on your success team are people that are available to serve as resources to you as advisors. Oftentimes, they have a particular expertise. So I mentioned your primary advisor will always show up there once they're assigned. If you're in the College of Arts and Sciences, you may see someone who's called an advising dean. That is a person who is familiar with sort of broader policy and practice within the College of Arts and Sciences. They also know about the curriculum, so they can sort of help you work through advising questions as well. If you're in the School of Engineering or really any other school, you might see somebody who's called a student success advisor or a mentor of something of some sort. Some schools even assign career advisors right off the bat. So it really depends on what school you're in. Again, your school is sort of dictating to us who should be on that success team. But all of those people are people who can answer questions or at least refer you to the right spot should you encounter anything at UVA. And again, like I mentioned, the success team is also something that you can add to. So as you meet cool people along the way that you want to be on your team, you can add them to that so you can keep track of their email addresses and good things like that.
All right. Well, feel free. We still have about 5 minutes, but I'll do some quick reminders again. Again, orientation@virginia.edu. Just get to email for any questions you might have now, whether it's changing sessions, getting into a particular session for orientation, questions related to that. If you have not explored the website for other FAQs, that's also in the emails that I've sent about the reminders for our webinars. If you want to review recordings of previous webinar topics that we have had, which I implore you to do, you can look at our Wednesday webinars page. This particular recording should be up hopefully by the end of the week. So you'll be able to refer to it. The Stellic website also has some other videos and FAQs and things that might help you out as you continue to explore that. Again, drop-in hours for our transfer transition coaches are already listed on our Instagram, which is UVA Transfers on Instagram. And you can just drop in virtually. One of you can share your screen and again, walk through some of these things in a little bit slower manner to help just understand the systems right now and learn a little bit more about your transition academically to UVA. Um, don't see any other questions coming in. Grace, did I miss any of our other reminders there?
I don't think so. Just one more time, making sure everyone is keeping up with the new student portal, the UVA email, and I think Ava May just left our UVA transfers Instagram. We have also have a lot of good updates and resources in there as well, but I think everything else we hit on. Yes.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Sarah. And yep, there's the portal that you can access. Please, make sure you're keeping up with those tasks. There's lots in there based on your school of enrollment. So lots of summer work to keep you busy. And make sure you're prepared before you come by for orientation. And I think most folks are leaving the room. So if there's no lingering questions, we will go ahead and catch you on the next webinar. Thanks, Sarah. See y'all.